All right, I'm going to do a little bit more with notating rhythm and time in music. This is page 11. And on this page, they're talking about measures or bars. And this is really how we kind of divide up the time on the staff. And one of the reasons that they did this originally is because people were singing these parts in early church music. And once they started to divide the parts and sing different things, they needed a way to kind of keep everybody in line, keep everybody together. So they started adding kind of sections or fence posts to the timekeeping so that people could keep track of where they were in the music. So we've just discussed time signature, for instance, 4/4 time, and we said that the top number means that there are four somethings in a bar, four beats in a measure, and the bottom number is telling us that the quarter note gets one of those beats. So we would have 4 quarters, and we would count it 1, 2, 3, 4. And because the top number is a 4 in the time signature, once we use 4 beats, that's it. We can't put anything else in the bar. It's full. So then we have to move on to the next bar, and we could put notes in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I've got a quarter, a half note, which gets 2 counts, and then another quarter. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once again, we've filled up 4 beats. That measure is full. So then we would have to move on to the next measure. So this is just a way to kind of section off the time. And again, whatever that top number is, that's telling us how many beats in a measure. So when that number changes, it means that there will be a different number of beats in each measure. And I'm going to show that to you here in just 1 second. I want to bring to your attention the last measure, or the last bar line in a piece of music, is something called a double bar. And it's a thin line and a thick line. And this is sort of the musical equivalent of a stop sign in music. So when we see that, as when we're reading music, it tells us that's the end. You've reached the end. And it's important because if you have a score with multiple pages, when you get to the bottom of a page, if it doesn't have this double bar, that means there's probably some more music somewhere that you need to go find. Page 2, page 3, right? So you keep going until the music ends with this double bar line, which is again kind of like a stop sign or telling you that you're at the end. So look at those examples in the book. They're drawn much better than mine. That's the explanation of the double bar. All right, now I'm going to go forward to page 16. 16 and 17. Just a minute ago, I told you that if the top number of the time signature was a different number, then we would have different numbers of beats in each measure. What does that look like? Well, page 16, we have a time signature of 2/4. So now we have 2 beats in a measure, 1, 2, and each beat is a quarter note. So that just means that we can draw 2 quarter notes, 1, 2, and now the measure is full. So we would have to put in a bar line. We can't put any more notes in that measure. It also means that we could have a half note in the measure, 1, 2, and again, we would need to put in a bar line. Can you put a whole note in a measure with a 2/4 time signature? No, you cannot. It has too many beats relative to the half note and the quarter. It would be like 4 beats. Doesn't fit. So you can't put a whole note in a piece of music that's written in 2/4 time. Doesn't fit. So that's kind of what 2/4 looks like. Why? Why is some music in 4 and why is some music in 2? It's a fair question. I think that composers would organize the beats sometimes according to how the music feels. So some music has a feeling of moving in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It's sort of phrased and feels like it's in 4. And other music feels very much like it's in 2, like a march. Boom, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, boom, boom, boom. You know, it's just the way that the music sounds, the way that it's phrased, the emphasis lends itself to feeling the music more in 2. So that's the reason that we might change the time signature. Page 17, this gets a little bit more fun. Now we have 3/4. So yes, the top number can be almost anything you want. It's just telling us how many beats are in a measure. So it could be 3 or 4 or 2, could be 7, could be 11. It really doesn't matter. But the bottom number always has to be a 1, a 2, a 4, an 8. It has to be a note value. So in the example on page 17, we're in 3/4, meaning we can have 3 notes in a measure if they're all quarter notes. 3 quarter notes fits in 1 measure of music. But so does a half and a quarter. So does a quarter note rest and a quarter note and another quarter note rest. Right? 1, 2, 3. So anything that adds up to 3 that fits can be notated in 1 measure of music that's in 3/4 time. So I think that's pretty straightforward, right? It's kind of just math. So let me attempt to squeeze in one more idea, which is page 18. Here we get a little bit extra notation. Now we're adding a dot to a note. And if I draw a half note on my little staff here, and then put a dot over to the right, we call this a dotted half note. And what the dot actually does is it adds 1/2 the value of the note to itself. What? It's kind of nutty. So what does that mean? Okay, well, the note is a half note. In 3/4 time, a half note gets 2 counts, right? It's like 2 quarter notes put together. Okay, cool. So if we're going to add half the value of the note, which is 2 counts, that would be 1 more count. So it's kind of like taking a half note, adding a quarter note, so that altogether you've got 2 plus 1 equals 3. 3 counts, right? But it's just going to be 1 note with 3 counts. So it'd be kind of like adding these things together, and you get a dotted half note. So if I counted this note, or played this note, it would go 1, 2, 3, off. And it would fill up an entire measure of 3/4 time signature. Again, the half note is 2 counts. The dot adds 1 more count. So total, we have 3 counts with a dotted half. Make sense? All right. Check in with me with your questions. I know it's getting a little tricky, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Simple math. All right. Be back at you with another one here in a minute.